Hello and welcome to Mullen's Benefits Companion, a podcast that helps employers navigate the complex legal challenges of managing their employee benefit plans. I'm your host, Brydon DeWitt, and today I'm joined by my partner and chair of the Employee Benefits and Executive Compensation Practice at Mullen, Marc Purintun. Welcome back to the Benefits Companion, Marc.
Thank you, Brydon. I'm happy to be back.
Marc does a lot of focus on 403B plans, and I asked Marc to be on the podcast to talk about some recent developments in the 403B plan world. Over the last few years, Marc, I guess over the last decade, 403B plans have been required to look a lot more like 401A qualified plans. And so what are some of the recent developments or background that led us to where we are today?
Sure. Well, going all the way back to 2004, the IRS issued proposed regulations on 403B plans for the first time since the 80s, and finally came to the conclusion that they needed to be moving 403B plans to look more and act more and more like other tax-favored qualified plans. And so as part of the requirements in the proposed regulation and then in the final regulations, which were issued in 2007, was that the plan had to be in writing. And up until that point, it was mostly the annuity contracts that were purchased under a 403B plan that were in writing, but the actual terms of the plan may not have ever been in writing. But the IRS required that 403B plans had to have a written plan document. Initially, I think it had to be in place on January 1, 2009. They gave an extension so that by the end of 2009, everybody had to have a written plan document. That was all great. They had some model language out there that you might want to use to adopt your plan, but there wasn't much more that the IRS did with respect to the written plan document requirement until somewhere around 2018, 2019, the IRS said, okay, we're going to do something that we haven't done before, and it's called an extended remedial amendment period to allow you to go back and make retroactive changes to the plan you adopted in 2009, or if you're a newer plan, since the date you adopted the plan, and correct provisions that failed to meet the requirements of the code. And so you could adopt an amendment up until the end of June 2020 that could go retroactive to the date the plan was adopted or the date in 2009 when the written plan was drafted, and clean up prior provisions.
It sounds like you're kind of still on your own. I mean, there may have been a remedial amendment period. You could go back, and if you felt like there was an error in the plan document, you had this remedial amendment period to correct it. But how would a plan sponsor have known whether even the corrections were adequate?
Well, the guidance listed, these are the things we think you should have in your plan. So that was helpful. And the regulations also had guidance on that too. But I agree, it really did feel like the plan sponsor is left out there hanging, trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. Subsequently, the IRS had not really done much other than they had initiated a provision that allowed for pre-approved 403B plans, so that providers that wanted to offer a pre-approved plan, a plan that had been submitted to the IRS, it's a 403B plan, and the terms of that plan, the IRS has determined to satisfy the requirements of the code, including 403B, but also 401A and some other code sections that are applicable to 403B plans. The IRS would give them a letter, and then the adopting employers, if they adopted the plan in accordance with the adoption agreement, then could rely on that opinion letter. So slowly but surely, the IRS is moving towards having these plans look more and more like regular 401A defined contribution plans, including 401k plans. And this year, they've announced that they have started a determination letter program for individually designed 403B plans.
That really gets to what I was talking about, is the plan sponsors, if you had an individually designed plan, was on its own. And
Right.
So finally, after all of these years, being required to have a written plan document, there's a process to get these plans reviewed and approved.
Right. That is exactly where we are now. And so the determination letter process that the IRS has set up will allow individually designed plans to be submitted for determination in certain circumstances. So the circumstances include, first, an initial determination. If you've never had a determination letter before, which is every individually designed 403B plan now, it can be submitted and the IRS will determine the form of the document satisfies the requirements, the qualification requirements, which relate to Code Section 401A and other code sections, as well as the requirements for Section 403B. So Section 403B has separate requirements that don't necessarily apply to 401A or other qualified plans, but so their determination will be with respect to those two things, qualification requirements and Section 403B requirements. So they're going to allow an initial determination, also determinations upon termination of the plan. So when you terminate a 403B plan, you can now submit the plan to the IRS. It's required that, at the time the plan is terminated, all of the required amendments would be in place. That's a requirement for regular 401A plans. It's now a requirement for 403B plans. And you can get a letter saying that the form of the plan on the date of the termination is in compliance, as well as certain other opportunities which they haven't yet disclosed, but at some point in the future, the Commissioner of Internal Revenue will issue guidance and say, we're going to allow this type of determination letter request that would apply. So we don't know what that would be, but they've left that open. The final option is merged plans. If you've got a merger as part of a corporate acquisition, or you're just merging a couple of 403B plans that were maintained by the same employer, you can submit those plans as merged plans once the merger has occurred to the IRS for a determination letter as well.
No 403B plan has ever been submitted for a determination letter. This is a brand new opportunity for those plans. Do you recommend that plan sponsors submit their plans?
I would recommend it because it gives you a sense of reliance. You know that the terms of my plan satisfy the requirements of the Internal Revenue Code. 403B plans are subject to audit by the IRS. If the IRS on audit discovers a disqualifying provision, then the IRS will make you fix the disqualifying provision under threat of disqualifying the plan, and there'll be a fee. If the IRS, through a determination letter process, determines this provision doesn't meet what they expect as required, then they'll have you make the correction, but it's not in the same status as corrections made under audit, which are then subject to penalties and fees.
So it sounds like it's that remedial amendment concept you discussed earlier.
Exactly. The IRS is allowing plans to begin submitting. However, they can't take them all at once, especially in this first opportunity for determination letters. So they're going to do a 3-year cycle of determination letters. Plans maintained by plan sponsors whose EIN, the last number in the employer ID number, is 1, 2, or 3, can apply for a determination letter beginning June 1, 2023. Plans whose last number of their EIN is 4, 5, 6, or 7 can apply for a determination letter beginning June 1, 2024. And plans whose EIN last number is 8, 9, or 0 can apply beginning June 1, 2025.
Well, this sounds like really welcome relief for 403B plan sponsors.
Well, it does give you a sense of, oh my gosh, we had to rush through, get this plan document in place. We've never really had any clear guidance from the service exactly what they intend. I think over time, there's been enough to have a good sense that you have your plan in correct order, but this gives you assurance that you do. And so for plan sponsors of an individually designed plan, it's a good opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Benefits Companion, Marc. That will wrap up our discussion. If listeners have any questions or suggestions for future episodes of this podcast, please contact me. You can also visit our employee benefits page at williamsmullen.com/employee benefits. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Thanks for listening.